Hello everyone, welcome to the second season of Design Inspire Talks. I'm Kadambari Sahu, your host, founder of Design Inspire platform and SVP Design at ValueLabs. Design Inspire is an initiative to connect designers across the global design community, and Design Inspire Talks is a presentation and discussion series with passionate, innovative, and inspiring designers. It dives deep into their passion, inspiration, and what makes them go. It is an effort to understand how they are navigating their career path and how they are investing their creative energies. We believe hearing their bold moves and inspiring stories will ignite interest and inspire the next generation of budding designers across the globe. So let's go forward with our guest today,
Nishita Gill. Nishita is obsessed with making breakthrough technologies entwine into our daily lives to the point of invisibility. She started her design agency, Treemouse, based out of Delhi and London. And in short span of 5 years, Treemouse's diverse, young and passionate team has built deep-rooted alliances with organizations like Facebook, SAP, Elsevier, etc., to the mission like making Punjab free of hepatitis C, India and South Africa free of TB, making e-mobility a preferred choice for Indians, bringing digital finance to the masses, bringing AI to the value chain, bringing VR to the classrooms, and many other strategic goals. Let's hear more about the ideology behind Uncover the Visible, Invisible from Nishita. Hi, Nishita. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Kadambari. That was a lovely intro. I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good too. So, Nishita, the format of the show would be the first is the presentation of your choice, where we would like to hear any stories that you're passionate about. And the second part would be a sort of a chat between me and you, where we discuss more about your design journey.
Sounds good.
All right, so let's go forward. Can't wait to hear your presentation.
All right. I'm just going to start sharing my screen. Yeah. All right. Good morning. It's nighttime at where I am currently, but thank you for taking out the time. I know it's the end of the week. So I'm going to try and make this brief. And with that, I'm going to start with a very soppy love story. I'm Nishita, and you've already met my far better half, Deepak. And I mean it when I say far better half. And I'm not just saying it because I think he's part of the audience right now. And also because he said something similar during the talk here last time. So I think he'd already spoken about this, but I'm going to bring it home a little bit more. Deepak and I met at SAP, and we used to spend our days there where we would just talk about design and what we wanted to do within the field. He focused on the usable and he paid a lot of attention to the craft. Like, how do you make something so usable that it becomes invisible? And I was living in a dream world where I wanted to really radically change thoughts and perceptions. And I wanted to use design as a tool to be able to do that. So it was a now or never moment for us. I was already immersed in a world of radical thinking. So I took the plunge and then I decided to start Treemouse. Deepak was my first test. If I could convince him to join my ambitious path, I knew we'd be okay. And to my luck, he agreed. And in May of 2015 is when we started Treemouse. So initially, like this is the first version of the website and we came out and how do we talk about ourselves that you see on the screen. So initially it took on identities which were like both ours, and our way of thinking. So we started pitching for projects so we could apply our endless discussions of what design means, methods and processes to any kind of business scenario that we could find. He was the voice of usable, I was the voice of radical, and together we could bring radical ideas to reality and make them entwine into our lives. Over the years, this thought kind of converged, and that brings us to the mission statement that we have today, which is uncover the invisible. So let's stay here for 4 seconds and let this sink in. How many of you blinked in those 4 seconds? I'm guessing all of you did. Did you notice it? Not sure if you did. So you blink once every 4 seconds and you rarely think about the complex machinery behind it. Why does it happen? Why do our eyes need a skinny cover? But once you start noticing it, you do realize how essential it is. But on any other day, if I wouldn't have asked you about this, you would have really not thought about it. It's invisible, even if it is so fundamental to you. That's our goal. That's what we want to do. We want to make all your radical ideas lead to this, to become invisible. We want to build these kind of next normals or new normals, like so dependable and so entwined into your life that you just don't think about it and you don't need to worry about it. Now, I'm guessing like your next question will be, Nishita, what is this radical idea and how do you make them visible? So definitely do a Google search. And I'll probably tell you, like an over ambitious auto suggest, that they're everywhere. And there's a journey that you have to take towards their visibility and towards their invisibility. शायद थोड़ा सा भारी हो गया, so I'm just gonna get like to a little bit of a pause, and I transport you to Punjab just for a tag bit. And here you can see my friend, then client, now friend, and he's checking out the pyaz and saag that we'll be harvesting and eating later in the day for lunch. Um, Now, this is 2015. I'm not sure if you remember this time and how active in the design circuit you were at that time. But at this time, all the major newspapers were carrying headlines about hepatitis C. It is like, it's really deadly, it's taking over the population, it's killing mostly everybody, and Punjab is at the center of rising cases. And I still remember this, that the news was so gory. Like at some point, there were districts in Punjab that had even seen 80% of the people infected with the disease. So it was really quite a bad situation there. But you know, the thing is that hepatitis C is extremely curable. So you would kind of feel that it's common sense to just take medicines to cure it, right? But it really wasn't that much of a common sense for people who were living there. So I just want to show this to you just to see what the vocabulary gap was like when we went into the field. People who have the money and the ability to change the system, they're talking about things which the patients and families aren't even thinking about. Like they're talking about maybe they're not taking it because it's expensive, maybe it's inaccessible, things like that, right? But the supply, you know, and they're also thinking about, okay, how do we make this? How do we reduce medicine cost? Or you know, like how do we educate people? Those kind of things. You know, like education is the god all problem for oil. But what they're not talking about, and where like the people of Punjab are coming in from, is that they don't have any faith in the medicines. Like they're feeling like, okay, there is no symptom to Hep-C. I just feel tired, and it's probably just the sun. And there's another thing where, you know, like water is so bad in Punjab, was that was one of the that was another one of the it was a popular opinion at that time that water is really bad in Punjab. And so they were all saying things like, okay, what's the point? Water is so bad in Punjab, we're going to die eventually. So let's just, we are all in this now. So let's just get our kids to escape this fate. We'll anyway die. So what's the point in any medication? What's the point in treatment? So they were in that sort of a mode, and imagine what the people who had the accessibility to medicines and all, they were thinking, and imagine what the users were saying. So just the vocabulary gap was quite intense. But you know, there's a buzz. So there's always, let's not forget that everyone was associating Punjab with Hep-C. And like we're amazing, right? As humans, because we design systems for our inaction. Like we've been witnessing climate change for so many years, but we haven't done anything about it. It's a design flaw. It's designed towards inaction. And it's the same problem here. Like our inaction was leading all the people towards something called a points test, which is a complete false positive test that was just cooked up over there in the community. It gives no indication of active viral load, but it just gives you a number. Like it gives a sort of just some number, right? And people started associating this number with their health. So it was really just designed for, okay, fine, like where this point test is just leading me towards a number, and that's it. That is my health. Now, the first thing that we had to do was like the people who had the decision, sorry, who had the means to change the system, or like the thinking, and had the means to build access to medication, they needed to understand what was going on and not just blame it on random things, on why people are not taking medicines up. So we had to show it to our clients that this was happening. Like we had to show it to the government officials, to stakeholders, And we figured that we could use this normalcy of this points test to also our advantage. So we had to tell them that, hey, this is what you are saying, this is what they are saying. And but at the same time, there is this points test that let's try and figure out a way that we can take it to our, like we can probably leverage to our advantage. Um, and this is sort of the case with most systems. Like you deeply investigate vicious loops of normals, and you try and find a point where you can intervene. This is typically where your radical ideas lie. So in this case, it was at that moment of jhatka where you would get a points test. And at any other things, like there would be very different points where you can like go really deep and try and see, okay, there's something that I can change here. So this is just a very quirky graphic to show that this is where you can spin into new normals, you know. And here at Treemouse, like when we started working together and we started for like with us 6-7 years, what we've been doing is literally just investing all our time and effort to deeply deconstructing these layers, layer by layer, to find out like what is that moment or what is that point where things can change. So let's get back to the people here. Now, we went ahead to understand what happens after that moment of jhatka. Now, once you get the points test, arbitrarily, you'll get a very high number at some day. It's extremely arbitrary. You don't know when it will happen, but arbitrarily you might. Now, you'd probably, once you get that, you'll probably speak to your friends who will most likely say, Arey, it's okay. I also got a high number yesterday. But then when you go to fill up the water at like a local water station or a RO station, which you do every day because that's in their routine, they do it every day. You see a poster that says there's a health camp on the weekend. And you're already pretty used to going for health camp. In Punjab, health camp is like a show of strength that, you know, oh, I have this much blood. So everybody anyway goes to health camp and you're like, let me just go and see. And there you see, or sorry, you hear things like Hep-C is like a termite. It eats you from within and doesn't show up on the body. So you're intrigued and you speak to a counselor and he tells you about how the virus affects the system. And whenever you're ready to take this treatment, you can go to the doctor and ask for remdesivir, which is the medicine for Hep-C. Now, this way, you've basically empowered the person to take ownership. You've given them all the knowledge and you've given them all the information that they need to be able to take an action, right? Now, at this point, you can either hope that they would act or you can orchestrate. We would probably err on the side of not orchestrating because that ends to become manipulation. But there are nudges that you can design where it just very naturally, if you've understood everyone's mindsets and how they're behaving, they would most likely take a preferable action. Now, in this case, for instance, let's just take the scenario that he doesn't go to the health camp. You will eventually, the patient will eventually go for a glucose shot. And that usually happens at a pharmacy. The pharmacist will say the same thing. Hep-C is like a termite. It eats you from within and doesn't show up on the body. Now that urges you to see a doctor, wouldn't it? Like okay, there's some new information. I wanted to see what this goes, where this goes. So, and the doctor then, when you go to the doctor, you realize that the medicine is cheap and there's really no harm in taking them. Now, what the good part is as a design agency is that when you encounter this moment of change or jhatka or those small nodes that you can change in the ecosystem, you can really go guns ablaze and create a lot of ways for intervention. So you can do marketing campaigns, you can do posters, digital products, you can do whatever it needs to basically make people feel a lot more comfortable. And this is, I've oversimplified all the work we did. It was for about a year and a half or two that we had to do, that we were on the field over here. But at the end of the day, like you are able to you are able to create this change and you are able to create a preferable future. And this is a cycle. So you have to, so maybe the first time it happened right with the poster worked in in the RO station. But the second time a person is going to come there, he'll be like, Acha, this I already know. They give me something new. So what is this next thing that you're going to make? So to create this sense of normalcy over time, that, hey, you know what? You can have an agency over your health. You can live a long and happy life. Hep-C is curable, and you're really trying to impart this really radical thought in a person who's really not ready to listen to you. um, it will take some time. It will take these small nudges. It will take these very small actions on your part, but it will happen. And we did. This is such a beautiful case study because now, at some point, the medicines in 2017, the government made it completely free, right? People were still not taking them. But when this started, like when we started creating these interventions, when we started getting we did another campaign called the Local Heroes and stuff like that. So all of these interventions that we did over 2 years, that really led to people starting to take more ownership of their health. Yeah, so like the poster was, so even in the poster, what we had done was it was something very, very simple, something that can be printed at very local shops using very basic PowerPoint templates. So like skills that are available and accessible by the local technicians. So it did not need any a foreign agent to come in. So they could make their own tweaks and then create a poster. All it said was that Hep-C is not because of bad water and find out more at the health camp. That's it. And it worked, right? And well, this is it being displayed. So I'm hoping that at this point we're getting the hang of what uncovering the invisible machines. And if it's not working, just kind of do a hands up or something, and I'm happy to get deeper into this. But finding those nuanced moments where you can introduce change is, if you can take that as a takeaway, that's really one of the crux of it. And we've been doing this time and time again, you know. So like in the case of electric mobility, like we've been gunning for electric mobility to be a thing for India, you know, because it's I mean, we have enough problems and we don't want pollution to be something that, you know, we have to face on a daily basis. And electric mobility is one of the very good ways to just, you know, cross that bridge. And in this case, we realized that, you know, when you really want to do mass adoption, when you really want uh, everybody, like all socioeconomic segments, to pick up a new technology, um, that was the very interesting and key challenge here. And in this specific case, it was much to our surprise that there was just something that we just needed to do was tailor into the mindset of someone that we called a fence sitter. Now, e-mobility and subsidies for e-mobility and were everywhere. Like they were in all local newspapers. Everybody was talking about it. This is about 2 years back, you know, when it was a buzz. There was fame schemes and you know, Tesla was whatever, like one of the buzzwords that everybody was talking about, like new tech and stuff. So there was definitely a very strong intention to buy and like a lot of good momentum for people to think about buying this. But the fence sitters, like the group that we uncovered and we presented to the clients to, you know, target these guys, they were thinking about buying it, but they were afraid of breakdowns. Very simple. They were just like, this is a bike that is from the future. I don't know how to do jugaad with it. I don't know how to fix it. It can stop anytime. What will I do? And it feels way too futuristic for me to do. And we did something extremely simple. Like we could already leverage the mass publicity, and all we needed to do was just create a sense of ownership. So we started marketing things like Meri Pehli Electric that would get people into a sense of ownership. Like it does not make people, sorry, buy it, but it just started reinforcing that, okay, in the mass advertising, there will be a sense of mine, you know, not that electric is the way for the future. It says electric is mine. So that subconsciously starts affecting you to start thinking, okay, if it is mine, what will I do? And then you start looking on YouTube and then you're flooded with DIY videos on how to do it. And most of these DIY videos will start by saying, it does not have an engine, so it's super easy to fix. So that triggers you to go like, okay, let me go deeper into it. And then you have one or two very quick hacks and very quick repairs. So those became like wildfire. The DIY videos were something we had user-generated content from the clients. They had some sort of content that went in, user-generated content went in, a lot of publicity went into it, and that is what encouraged users to start thinking about this purchase. Then like you're still probably on the verge of thinking, okay, uh, maybe this is for me, maybe this is not for me. And then campaigns which we did, like other campaigns we did, like one of them was like join the green helmets. So these are the things that keep reinforcing that, hey, you know what, this is accessible to me today, coupled with the fact that the cost is very minimal. Like, so it's equivalent to your scooter, like the first scooter you bought. So it's not equivalent to your bike. You know, it's good for the environment. It runs on electricity, does not consume fuel. You would kind of jump at that. So, and it did. Like our clients were very successful. They became one of the biggest sellers of electric mobility, and electric mobility, as you already know, like it's really taking waves in India now. So we've been doing this for a while. In due process, I think some of the things which I'm particularly very proud of is we've helped make EMI become accessible to people in the remotest corners of India. I still remember when, not even in India, actually in Nepal. I remember we'd gone for a trek to Nepal, and there was a Maggie ki dukan, and he was selling like a phone, like a small Nokia phone for any of the visitors and stuff. And he was like, yeah, it's okay, you can take it on EMI. And there was like Bajaj Finserv EMI. I was like, yes, I was a part of this. So there are a lot of these moments like where you can really point on this like really small area, like small change that you want, small nuance or small pivot that you can do in a consumer's life cycle or a user's life cycle. Leverage that and just build on it, for that nudge to happen and create new normals. Something similar we did was like we work a lot in health. That's something which is very dear to us, especially given the situation and everything. And we've been working in India and South Africa, and we've been associated with things like tuberculosis, rheumatoid arthritis, and a lot of other things. One of the fundamental things which, if you think about it, it just feels very logical, but we've not given it much thought, is most of the initiatives on health are for the patient, right? But it's actually P plus X. It's the caregiver that's at the center of the ecosystem. The decisions that a patient has to go through are actually not his alone. It's about the caregiver too. So your focus from P to P plus X can really allow you to create ripples and waves of change in health. You know? Okay, I'm gonna keep it really short because that's what I promised your team. So invisibles really like being invisibles. With each new challenge, you have to come up with better ways to understanding them, and they come in layers. They're extremely, sometimes they're so obvious to even the researcher. They're like, oh shit, I didn't realize that this was an invisible. So you really have to train yourself to be able to understand and get them. And an even further training is required to be able to build something that blends into an invisibility. I think as designers, we focus so much on making designs feel very visible, shout, scream, all of that. But if we don't get them into a normal, if we don't get them into an invisible, back into the invisible that we got people out of, it's like stirring someone and not making them feel comfortable, you know. So if you're stirring someone, ensure they're comfortable as well, right? And that is the whole journey that we've been working on. And that I think is something just today, it's so important because, there's so many other things that we have to do. Like we have enough challenges around us. So let's just do this. And at least this is our way of doing things. We're just waiting to be able to do more. Yeah, that's all we do. Like we get radical thoughts. We try and make them invisible, and it just gets us a step closer to better, healthier futures. That's it. Thank you.
Wow, that was quite inspiring, Nishita. Let's chat more in the next section where we discuss on the design journeys and many things designed. So let's start with a simple question where I would ask you, like, tell me something about yourself.
Okay. Well, I'm an obsessive person, as you've already seen. I think, I think I have thoroughly it, I'm very reflective, so it's very interesting for me to see where Treemouse especially, because that's like a baby for me. And it goes through its own ups and downs. Every organization goes through its own challenges. And for me particularly, I'm the kind of person who that really feels that, if you're at your lowest, that's the point that can shape you, so your lowest is the one that shapes you. So so for me, like, yes, victories and all are great. We've had enough of those. But the lowest points are the ones which have propelled us to either change, to rethink, to do anything differently, and to really be resilient, and be fortunate enough to wave through COVID, and everything else as well. So so as me as a person, I would I would kind of combine it with the identity of Treemouse, but resilience would kind of call out to that.
All right. Let's start talking about your design journey. When did you think about getting into design? Were you already like when you were a child, you already thought about it? How did it happen for you?
I do not want my journey to kind of inspire me, be a inspiration for anyone. Mine was an absolute fluke. It started. I was preparing for my medical exams, and my neighbor was preparing for NIFT, and I found the test paper very interesting. So as a break, I thought I'll go and give the NIFT exams. Literally, it started there.
Wow.
And as a fluke, I got through NIFT. Which was not very satisfying, to be honest, in the sense that I enjoyed the thinking process, but the creation process felt that I hadn't done enough. Like, so I was still trying to challenge my thinking a lot more than the craft. And then I worked for a bit where I could kind of blend in both, just to see whether even design is right, or should I get into something else, all of those things. Can I go back into medical? All those questions were happening. And then literally NID happened as a fluke, because someone from NIFT introduced me to NID. I had no idea about NID. So in the second year or something, I was introduced, oh, there's a college called NID that maybe you want to try if you're interested in thinking about these sort of things. That's when I applied and I got in as a fluke again. So my journey has been extreme fluke. But I think having done it twice over, I was like, okay, let me just give this a shot. Maybe this is something interesting. And I think by the time I reached SAP, I was just quite sure that this is the sort of tool that I can use to explore my passion. And I was a very passionate person. I wanted to always change things, or like, "Ye change karna hai, the dunya ko change karna hai." But this felt like the right tool to be able to do it. So it was a very fluid and kind of got me there kind of a journey. But I wouldn't recommend it to anyone else.
And how and when did you think of becoming an entrepreneur?
Like I addressed it in, I think, the presentation as well. I think Deepak also addressed it. It was, I think both of us fueled each other's thirst for change. Like, he was extremely, like, he wanted to do something extremely usable, and I wanted to do something extremely radical. And now, of course, as you know, the roles have reversed quite a lot, because now his whole thing is about radical ideas for a better tomorrow. But I think we spoke about it so much that we had a lot more vocabulary than when we started SAP.
Yeah.
And that vocabulary allowed us to even think about, okay, if we need to do what we want to do, like, what do we want to do with this energy that's coming, or what do we want to do with this vocabulary that we've kind of thought of, and all these crazy books that we've been reading, and, like, chapoing the libraries and stuff. So just, I think that kind of fueled me specifically to say, okay, I'm going to quit, and let's see where this goes. No holds bar. I'm just like, whatever, 26, I think, at that time. Yeah. And I have a whole life ahead of me. And if I want, I'll join again. Like, if this doesn't work, I'm going to join back again. But when Deepak joined in, it was more about, like, I was like, oh shit, I have to, now there's salaries. Because immediately with him was his best friend, and then my friend, and like, there's so many other people who started joining us, and they're like, salaries. So that got me into the business of all of this, which really changed our orientation to, like, it changed us as a company. And it wasn't the way it started for sure. So it's been evolving, to be honest, all through.
Great. So, how are you representing and doing outreach of your design work? You guys have done phenomenal work, right? So, how do you trying to get it out visible and people to at least understand your designs? Yeah, how do you do that?
We're really bad at that. I think that is one of the things that maybe it could pretty much, I'm not sure where it comes from, but at least I feel like I'm not the sort of person who likes to talk about my work. Like the starting slide also said, I would prefer a conversation than a presentation. But it just makes you feel, okay, why do you want to talk about it? So you really have to get over these imposter syndromes that not just you, but your whole entire team faces. And my team faces a lot of it. And I really don't know why, but they do. So it becomes difficult to displace from it and speak about it in mass media circuits, which is why we're not very active on social media either. But we do prefer things like, okay, we'll write, we'll host an exhibit, we'll probably send you very long letters if you've asked us for something. Those are the sort of ways that we can express ourselves, and we found joy in that. And so we've been doing a lot of publishing. We have these booklets that we keep giving out and all of that. So those are the ways that we find our joy, and not in social media. So that has been it's also very limiting, because that's only to people you already know, and they might not pass it on anywhere else. So it's not mass market publicity. But we've also been very fortunate that our clients, just word of mouth kind of gets the work. So it's not something we've had to invest in, really.
Okay. So when we spoke, you had talked about that how many good designers didn't feel that they were good enough, like the imposter syndrome that you were talking about the team also. So do you want to give any advice, like how to go get over it, or anything like suggestion, advice, comment?
I mean, I face it every day, so I think you just have to blank that part of your brain and just go like, okay, you know what? You're walking into a meeting and just not think about it. So it's a thought for another day. In therapy, they say, right, deflect. So deflect. No, but in all honesty, I think we tend to not recognize it. It's also because of the way designers are positioned, right? Like we're supposed to be the listeners, or you're sort of at the point where you're servitude, like you're in a point of servitude to the users and all of that. So you're positioned at that level as well in your learning and stuff, and which is great. Like that's right. That is how design should be, because if like we need to be in that pedestal, which is not highly opinionated and all that, to be able to deliver great work. But that also lends us to not talking about ourselves. So I think just to disconnect those two sides, just say, okay, yes, when I'm designing or when I'm crafting, I am doing justice to it by uh, being the voice and all of that. But when it comes to not design, and when it comes to like when I have to talk about myself, because it's also a business, it's also an industry, I have to make my mark. Then just be like anyone else. I mean, and it's a very different switch. I haven't mastered it well yet, to be honest, but I am learning how to do it. But yeah, I'm guessing everybody would have their own journey for that as well.
Sure. Now let's talk about the work that we were able to do because of the good clients, right? So how did you find them? How do you get good clients?
That's a very tough one. I think we had really good clients for the first 2 years. Then we were pivoting because we were not sure where we were. And then again, because of our body of work and the logos that we had under us, we started getting really good work. And now we just get like really, really amazing work. So it was definitely a journey to get to a point where you could be a part of strategies and not part of conversations, which is like, okay, bas logo bana do, website bana do, that kind of a thing. So there's definitely a transition from being understood as someone who's a craftsman to someone who can actually provide valuable thought and strategy to your organization. And I think that was just a constant struggle. Like we had to not struggle, but like it was a constant endeavor, I would say, because we had to do that judiciously every single time we pitched. Like we had to talk about our way of thinking, we had to address it, we had to like literally just like sometimes even I would go onto the whiteboards in a meeting and be like, just forget about the presentation that I just showed you. Let's talk about this. This is where your problem is. Tell me about this, tell me about that. And then I would kind of come up with a strategy on the spot and be like, maybe we can invest in her. So those are the ways that you kind of build the fact that I can really help you out in a larger way. But it definitely is a journey to it. I wouldn't say it's something that it just comes.
You did talk about Treemouse culture, but do you want to like define it, like how and how it is, or what are its characteristics when you look at the your agency? If somebody asks you like, okay, what is the culture of Treemouse?
I think the reason why we even at some point were not happy with beyond a 15-member team was because we realized that beyond that number, you can't be a family, at least for us. Like in the setup that we had, it was very difficult for us to make a family out of it. And we had to move to, like even hiring HR roles and stuff like that, which we were not very happy with. Like, let's not get there. Let's just get to something which is acceptable and something which we want to do, and something that's going to make us reach our goals. And I, I mean, I just really love the team right now because it's just like we've been there through COVID times, and it's been hard for everybody. But we've all been there to support each other. So it's not just about work, right? And there's so many things where you can be there, you can lend your helping hand to someone who is in need, and that's what really makes our culture. And I don't, I am not someone who can have a very fixed personal life and a professional life. And Unfortunately, my team has also now become that. So it's a very blended atmosphere everywhere. To the effect, like even our office is called home. So like when we could go to offices, like we had a farm garden and like all of that. So like we built an office ground up just because we wanted ghar ki methi, ghar ki dal, like all of that stuff. So we wanted to have that homely atmosphere. Like all of us sit on a dining table and have a conversation or eat food together, all of that. And I used to also live there, so which is another thing. So yeah, so I mean, to me, like that culture is pretty much a small family that's trying to make a difference in the world.
Nice. That's really that's very sweet. Like how you guys are defining a culture in terms of like um, do you think it has side effects though? Like well, while it's at a positive, like because it becomes the whole identity in that case.
I mean, at some point, I used to take it really to my heart if we needed to let someone go or if someone was leaving. Both of these instances were very, very heartbreaking. And to the extent I would like just leave them be for some time, like 2 or 3 months, which is when others were like, hello, what's happening? We don't want to pay for this person who's not working. I think that is the hardest part. Like when you make that sort of a family, then it just becomes difficult over time to draw that line. But I think we've come to a point where like if it's not working or if you need to move on, then we try and help you find what's next for you as well. So it's a very open conversation, and it's like, okay, let's just get you placed into something else, which might be better suited to you. Or I mean, all like the recently whoever had to be let go or whoever has moved on, we're still really close friends with them. They're still coming for our mouse halls, town halls, or whatever we organize. So it is still an extended family. It's just that you don't see them on a daily basis. So we kind of had to work ourselves into that system.
Pandemic has affected everybody, right? Like it's affected indiscriminately, like a lot of people. How has it been for you, like and especially for the business of Treemouse?
We were actually quite fortunate to have a couple of running retainers. So most of our projects are running retainers.
Mhm.
And we were really fortunate to have that throughout the pandemic. So that allowed us to wave through it financially. But the bit where we struggled was it mentally was really bad for everybody, because in your family, or either in your immediate family or your extended family, there was something or the other that was not right. Um, and it was harrowing for everybody. So to be able to give that time was very important, but then the deadlines on projects were stiffer, because
Oh,
like tradition, like if on a regular basis, if I would be a part of a project and I'd say, hey, you know what, something's up, like family emergencies, can't make this deadline, let's just give it another 2 weeks or something. Clients would be fine with it, they'd be okay with it, very reasonable. But this time they were like, no, we need it because they're on short on budgets. Everybody's trying to struggle with it. So that was the hard part, because despite everything, work needs to go on.
yeah.
And so we even extended a team at that point. Got a couple of freelancers and people who could, help us during those waves, to just help us get through some of the days so that other people could get some time off.
Yeah.
So it was a very difficult and but interesting situation if you look at it from afar. But I think we're still not over with the pandemic. So and it's still I think the March and the April and May period specifically just brings back horrors in terms of anyone who's passed away for in families and stuff. So it's people are still coming out of it. Long COVID has affected a lot of people, so it's still coming out of it. So mentally, it's not been easy for folks.
I think, being designer also is like a part of it, I would say, because we empathize and, sensitive people, even if, empathy, sensitivity, all of these are part of it, right? And eventually what happens to us is we keep absorbing all of these, right?
Yeah.
And then we are also very action oriented folks, right? We want to do something. And sometimes, when that doesn't come out, I think, it has been a constant struggle for me also during the pandemic. And I think, that's been a challenge for every organization. Like people, literally everybody, has seen some or the other loss of family members and, people. So to make sure that business is still, not really challenged on deadlines and things are going. But yeah, I think yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
I think
reality of today.
there was an article I read which kicked me into a different mode. Like it said, let's not talk about empathy, let's talk about compassion.
Yeah.
Um,
Even I have
and
read
yeah. Yeah, because that kind of that makes you understand, like, what is the difference between the two terms. And compassion is more action oriented, and empathy is like it's more like
absorbing and
breathing.
understanding, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So shifting like a designer's tendency from an empathy
Empathy to
or an empathetic position.
action.
Yeah, that was pretty. It hit the right chord in my head at least. That helped me move forward into projects as well.
So like for me, like, it had happened, like, I always talk about like empathy, but there's also like, that's just the first part. The second part is that whole rebellion in you who want to change, like as designers, like, we all, so that gets into action. And I think, pandemic has mainly restricted in both the ways. Sometimes, yes, you've tried doing some things, be it piece of marketing, sort of making sure that people are good, or just random acts of kindness or things like that. But yeah, I think I don't think it's enough even, and it's not over as yet. So yeah, we're
Yeah,
all, getting through it right now. Um,
unfortunately, yes.
shifting your gears to, talking about like advices, or advice that you would give to your younger self, 5 year younger self, what would that be, if any?
No, I don't think I would, because I really enjoyed the journey.
No, maybe
Yeah, like
that
I
is
wouldn't want to change the course, to be honest. Like it's been quite incredible, and all the ups and downs have got us to where we are, and I couldn't be happier about where we are.
yeah.
So I think the point of advice would only come if I sometimes feel like, this is not working. So, but it's really
Yeah.
not come to that. So advice maybe no, but in general, like I've always loved going back to our previous work. So sometimes you're ashamed of your previous work, but I've always loved going back to it. And I think like we delivered some of our best work in our first year when it was just three of us. That was just like because there was like the richest of ideas and the richest of conversations that we used to have. Like, and Ashish was there, Deepak was there, and three of us would just all through the night, all we would just be staying in one house and playing TT or sometimes like just random things, and then we would just be thinking about, okay, this is what design should be, and then creating proposals and pitches based on that. So nice. I love that, and it's been really rich to go back to those. So no advice really, but I think like maybe to others would always be to like not regret, but just always just enjoy the journey, I guess. But and keeping yourself grounded is always important, because in this wave of viral, what do you call it, publicity, yeah, you can really get into it. But like just धीर लगा के ना अपने आप वापस धरती पे ले आते हैं बहुत जल्दी चीजें. So it's important to always have that stable state, and that's really helped me over time, to not let the ups and downs affect to a point of disaster at any given level. So yeah, so
That would be your advice to, go around the journey then.
go along the journey, enjoy the journey, which was, I mean, in my case, to be fair, I'd always done it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. But if it has to be for others, this would be it.
How do you keep yourself most motivated and inspired?
I think my biggest inspiration, I'm not saying it because he's here, it's Deepak. He's the one. He's still the guy who's hands-on with the craft. Like he's always searching for something for us to watch, like some documentary that we hadn't seen, so he'll make us watch it. He'll get us a book that we haven't read. So I mean, I haven't had to dig up things. Like he's just been the provider for inspiration. But my personal curiosity always leads me to philosophy and like any kind of yeah, any books or anything which I can do, which I can read upon. In fact, just taking a course on it as well as we speak. So it's been my personal curiosity leads me there mostly.
Okay. Talking about, you just talked about some of the media. Would you want to recommend some of them to us?
Yeah, sure. I think my personal favorite are two books currently. One is, it's right here, in fact. It's Are We Human? Existential crisis. So, very philosophical take on design. But yeah, so Are We Human would be one, and the other one is Hidden in Plain Sight. So these two are books that I keep going back to. I've probably read them, I don't know, 8 to 9 times over. So, I mean, yeah, that's why they look so tattered at this point. Yeah, so that would be my recommendation.
Any advice to the young and budding designers, or suggestions or recommendations, any of those?
Don't give up on what you're currently doing too fast. I think we're very restless at a very young age. And if things are not going to plan, we kind of jump ships very fast, So just having that open conversation to say, okay, hey, you know what, this is, can this work better in my favor? What am I learning from this? And having those conversations with people who've been in the industry for longer. That I think is going to be pretty helpful, because I feel like that sense of restlessness is coming from very high ideals that we kind of get in design school, and the real world is not like that. So not giving up on what you're currently doing and why you started it, like sometimes even going back to just thinking about why you went into what you're currently doing and seeing if that's still working for you. So I'm not saying like don't shift gears or don't like change or things like that, but don't give up on it too fast. Like don't be like मैं नहीं कुछ कर रहा है, मैं नहीं करूँगा ये, or like nothing like that. So just थोड़ा धैर्य चाहिए अभी.
Yeah. Patience is virtue, as they say. Yeah.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Nishita, for coming and sharing your thoughts with us today. We really loved them. You inspired us a lot. And this is a small token of our love and appreciation for all the work that you do and for inspiring us. We confer upon you the title of Inspiring Designer. Thank you so much.
You. Thank you.
Folks watching us today, I hope this has inspired you, and stay inspired, keep designing. Until next time. Thank you, guys.